Hello, today on Geno Likes, we actually have to say Geno loves DiMarzio Cable. We've been waiting a long time to talk about these cables, kind of because we're trying to drag Larry in here, but he's a busy guy. Larry DiMarzio is a good friend of the store's, and I thought this story, a lot of things around products in marketing anyway, we always want to know what's the story. So the interesting thing, if you come into our store, you'll see that there's an entire wall of these things, and they're kind of hard to find. And there's a reason for that. So the story goes, Larry and his family were looking for a place to live to raise their kids, and they picked Bozeman, Montana in the early 90s. And we started carrying Larry's stuff. And one day he said, well, geez, how come we're not selling more of my cables? And his cables were of the just standard rubber sort, like everything else on the wall. So that we entered into a conversation about cables. And Larry's a real mad scientist, great designer. Obviously, he's one of the most important guys, top 100 important people in guitar in a magazine poll. So he's a real interesting guy when it comes to designing and engineering and pushing guitar forward. So the thing that's really interesting about this, I've been privy in my career to be parts of lots of cable developments, and just without naming any names or anything, a lot of times what happens with these developments is they go, wow, we can have somebody build some cable and we'll make our packaging really slick, and we'll make our ends really slick, and they're going to be, high-end cables. But really, it comes from this idea of marketing. Larry approached this project like a mad scientist, and I was very, very lucky. Me and my wife, actually, she was working for Larry at the time, the three of us actually got to develop this cable. And what that meant for Larry was very interesting. Larry actually bought all the cable you could get on the market, went for probably about half a dozen of the top brands, and we entered into many, many long nights of listening to all these different cables. And I thought we were done. We made a lot of notes. Then he took them and he pushed signal through them like a lot of companies do, just to kind of look and see how efficient it is. And I'd figure we'd be done. And then he actually chopped them open and wanted to know how much copper, how thick they were, how much silver, or whatever else was going on in the cable. The interesting thing is, from all that research, which, as you can imagine, took quite a while, he came up with what these cables are now. He also did a fantastic braiding on the outside that's beautiful. Hence, when I talk about Larry being a great designer, real vintage tweed. This matches. If you look, it's what it's supposed to look like. And of course, black always sells better than anything. There's actually black. This was the first black braided cable you could find anywhere, by the way. Anyhow, so what's really fascinating about that is when he brought those cables into market, as we like to say, I would have assumed some of the cables we were cutting up were a couple $100. I think one was $250. But a 10-foot cable at that time came in at about $25, so maybe even less. Very interesting, very high-quality cable. It's why everybody in the store really believes in him. Most of us use it. Hence, my favorite cable when I record is the Steve Vai signature cable, which has got this really cool little Steve Vai thing on it. But honestly, I just love it because it sounds amazing, and I think they just kind of tweaked the sound with Steve Vai to kind of get more of the sounds that he's really into. So these are quality guitar cables. I can't say enough about them. Oh, another thing I didn't mention, he uses silver solder on these. I know he monkeyed with the idea of even welding them at one point. So it's always about the sound quality when he designs something. Very, very cool. We also have the same cable without the braiding that we sell every day in here. We don't have a lot of $3 cables in the store. We just don't do that. So we really like selling better stuff. So come in and hear these and talk to somebody about them. If you have more questions, you can ask for me. I'm usually in the office. A couple other things to talk about. There is high-end microphone cable. A similar way he developed those. And I do want to talk about the speaker cable for a second. We only carry these in very short lengths, just to go from your head to your cab these days. But back in the day when we were doing the same thing with speaker cable, I was really high on rewiring bass cabinets in town. And at the time I was using two 210 cabinets and an Eden head. And when I went inside and rewired my cabinet and changed this cable, I went from going from about 1:32 o'clock when I played live turning my knob down to about 11 o'clock. So the energy transfer was outstanding. So there's a reason this stuff is in the store, and we really believe in it. So come in and hear it, check it out, and that's your bedtime story for the day.